تخيل المستقبل في مؤسسة دبي للمستقبل.
Dear guests, a panel discussion titled What Does the Future Hold for Us? Moderated by Dr. Patrick Noack, Executive Director, Future, Foresight, and Imagination at Dubai Future Foundation, is going to start now.
Okay. I'll take some water first.
Good to go.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last session on Level 7 here at the Dubai Future Forum. If I can just ask anyone to swiftly take their seats, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you and welcome to this session here. Its ambitious title is, What Does the Future Hold for Us on Planet Earth? We've gone through a handful of presentations already this morning, a handful of keynotes, very inspirational work, and I think it's really important for us to put this into context. What is clear is that we're all in this together. We're on this planet, we face similar challenges, but we also have very similar opportunities. So we may be able to utilize tools that are just out there, that are for the taking, that we can develop. I think it's clear to say, it's fair to say that the future is uncertain. We're not going blue-eyed into the next several years and decades, but I think there's also some sense of an opportunity that there's something that we can shape, that there's something that we can do about the kind of future. Just a few days ago, the United Nations have indicated that we are looking into I don't want to say the abyss, but we are going to go beyond the 1.5 degrees. We're likely to be within the 2.5 to 3 degree range in the next decade or so. So the implications are going to be critically important for us. So it's really a time for us to think about what we can do, as we mentioned earlier, some of the presentations that we've heard, but also what should we do as we look to some of the very basic, some of the very fundamental aspects of our lives. And this is what we're here to discuss with our three panelists this morning. The reason I say some of the very fundamental, very basic aspects is because, from my point of view, there are things that bring us together. It's about nature, it's about food, it's about the systems that allow us to do the surviving, the very basic surviving. And so with that, I'd like to welcome and be grateful to the panelists that joined me here this morning. From my left, Ismahane, Dr. Ismahane Elouafi. She is the outgoing chief scientist of the Food and Agriculture Organization and the incoming managing executive director to the CGIAR, which is a partnership of international organizations looking at innovation in agriculture, in food systems, and in water. Over to the left, then, we have Christine Gould. She is the CEO of Thought for Food. I just had to make sure I get this right because it's clearly play on words. CEO of Thought for Food, yeah, which is looking to help and accelerate startups in the innovation space of food systems. And then to my far left, to your right, we have Marc Buckley. Marc has established the ALOHAS Foundation.
ALOHAS Regenerative Foundation.
Thank you so much. And Marc is one of those people who takes a systems view, a systems approach to life. He's also one of pardon me.
It's enough to choke anyone up.
Choking. It's dry in here.
Yeah. You are losing your voice. Yeah. So do you want me to take up?
There's a bit of a cool breeze up here. I don't know if it's.
That's true. Yeah.
But Marc is one of the people who very early has been trained as a climate speaker by the Al Gore initiative. So it's a great pleasure to have all three of them here. To me, they represent three very distinct aspects of the very basic systems that we're addressing here. Marc is our systems thinker. Ismahane provides our multilateral view, and Christine provides us with the innovation.
Yeah.
I hope that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to start off the conversation with setting the scene and asking Ismahane, what is the challenge that we're facing, that you see that we're facing as we think of the future on this planet, our species on this planet?
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you for the invitation. And I think Worley said it very clearly. I think he explained very well how humanity is in a crisis, and that crisis comes from different fronts. There is the climate crisis, that is really the big elephant in the room, definitely, but there are many other crises, and we can easily spot them. So the growing population will require more food. We have already exhausted most of the resources we have on this planet, and we need really to rethink the way we consume, the way we produce food, the way we get it around the world. So we need a different system completely. The system have failed us as human. Right now, we are producing enough, but still wasting about 30%, actually it's exactly 34%. We are losing 17% of it on the farm, and we are losing about 17% of it in the processing or in the houses. But how could we produce more with less? How could we change our views to food to become our health instead of separating food from health, whereby we are eating to survive, and then we are going to the health sector to get medicated. So I think really we need a paradigm shift in the way we are looking at food, and we are really to go almost back to nature, go back to how we used to do it in the old days, whereby we produced different things, and our food is our health, and our food is our life. And I think really here what I want to really talk from the multilateral side. Today, we have about 783 million people that go to bed hungry. So when you think about it, in 2023, we are failing humanity completely. And only between 2019 and 2022 or 21, just pre-COVID and post-COVID, we got 120 million more people that are going to bed hungry. So I want to just end up here by saying, in the old indigenous people, tribal communities, they said if one person go to bed hungry, it means the community failed. So if we think about it as a planet, as a human being on this planet, as the most intelligent species on this planet, if we have 783 million people that go to bed hungry, it means we are failing 783 million times every day.
So the challenge is daunting. Christine, what is the challenge in terms of innovation to overcome all of these massive numbers, the numbers of people who go to bed hungry? What do you do in order to, well, what are the challenges, first of all, before we look at the opportunities?
We'll jump into the challenges, although as I work with entrepreneurs, my default setting is more on the optimistic solution side. But we are in a crisis. It's been described as code red for humanity. That was the language used by the IPCC to describe the climate emergency. Our food systems are at the core of this climate emergency, and if you think about, that phrase, all systems are under threat, that means our food systems, as well as our economic systems, our social systems, our cultural systems. you mentioned, rightly so, that food systems are responsible for 1/3 of all GHG emissions. They're also the most affected by rising temperatures and changing weather patterns. So we really, if we want to have a chance of climbing our way out of this emergency, if we want to have a chance of addressing our 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we need to start with food. And food is the biggest lever we have, actually, to solve our global challenges. So we'll get to some of the things that give me hope in a moment, but those are the challenges. And then I just want to add one last thing, because you asked specifically about innovation and investment. So we need innovation. Our food system is very entrenched and subject to a lot of inertia. We've been playing by the same rules for decades. There's a lot of behemoth organizations that hold a lot of power. Venture capitalists do not know how to invest in this sector, and we're feeling that very strongly right now. There's a drought of funding for startups, and a lot of it has to do with a misalignment between the expectations of investors and capital holders with the needs and realities of this sector, which is very complex, very diverse, longer timelines. You're dealing with stakeholders that are hard, to change habits around, and that's farmers. The average age of the world's farmers is over 60 years old. Bringing digital solutions to them, it's not easy for them to take on. It takes some time. You have consumer acceptance issues when you're talking about something as fundamental as food. You really do. You're speaking to people's hearts and health. So it takes some time for people to get their head around food technologies. There's regulatory issues. And of course, when you're going through regulations, it's not just human health regulations, it's also environmental regulations, which is, unique. Even pharmaceuticals don't have to go through both of those regulatory pathways. So there's a lot of things that we need to overcome. But I think that there's a chance to innovate not just in the technological space, but also in how we approach and think about these challenges.
So a lot of things to overcome. A lot of things means we really have to look at the systems.
Yeah.
Right? So it's food, it's environment, it's climate, it's finance. From a systems perspective, Marc, how are you approaching this? How are we where we are from a systems perspective right now?
The only way to solve our human suffering and our global grand challenges is through a systemic approach. This linear, siloed, or lateral approach that we have taken in the past hasn't served us very well. The entire international organizations of the world in 2018 switched to a systemic approach to solving human suffering and our global grand challenges. Just to put some things that were discussed here into perspective, yes, we had food waste of 30% of everything that was produced. Actually, during the pandemic, it went from 40 to 50% of everything we produce is wasted. It doesn't reach the table. But did you know that that is an astronomical statistic, but only 1/4 of that what we wasted would feed everybody who is malnutritioned and not receiving food, those millions of people that were discussed that go to bed hungry every night. So it's really a systems problem when you waste 40 to 50%, and even if it's 30% of your food, what is the problem? Is it the food system that is a problem? Is how we run the models? Why would we produce something and waste it? Let's take probably not the best example, but let's take Elon Musk. If we told him, you just produced this new cyber truck, we want you to throw 30% of those away immediately before you sell those, and then after that you can sell the rest. He would look at you and say, well, that's a bad business model. But why is it acceptable in the food and agriculture space, the beverage space in our world? It's not acceptable. That's a bad business model. And if we're allowing countries and cities and corporations to continue to produce with bad business model that have a problem for human health and for economic development and growth and for a good business model, they should go out of business. They shouldn't be allowed to practice there. The last point on that is, we tend to forget this. The world's biggest economy, oldest and longest running economy in our world, is an agrarian society. It's agriculture. it employs the most people in the world. It is a 20 trillion US dollar economy every single year, and has a shadow economy of 5 trillion US dollars every single year. With such a big economy, we should try to fix it. And that's why sustainable development is also an ecological economic model that addresses all food and agriculture things and envelops that whole form. And that's a great solution to solve those. You know, the world's biggest problems are our world's greatest and biggest opportunities to solve those problems.
So back to you then. It's quite, I think, unique. We have Elon Musk's Cybertruck together with the agrarian economy in one response. So I'm going to just pick up on that. What is the solution going forward? So how do we change those systems for planetary supply of food and agricultural products, but also for this very large economy? What are the opportunities that you see there?
Absolutely. So never before in human history have we transformed from one age or epoch or gotten out of a problem without a systemic approach and without innovation. So the pneumatic tire, the steam engine, the printing press, any invention that we had that solved human suffering and our global grand challenges and changed us from one epoch to another. And so now we're at an age, we have all this technology to solve these problems, but we're not applying it as quickly or in the way that we should. For example, there's the World Food Program, I think, is one of the best examples, who is trying to apply blockchain and artificial intelligence. They're also getting the help of Elon Musk in many respects to solve some of our food problems, to deliver food kind of after it's too late. But we should use those technologies in the right way to solve those problems. And I think it is definitely possible to unify ourselves in that system. The next thing that's really, I think, the most important thing in all the food systems is food has been put into the commodities market. Commodities are traded like stocks. They're basically a form of gambling. I think commodities are not the way to go. When we put food in the commodities market, we're actually cheapening food, which then cheapens life. And so when we can get food out of the commodities market, we don't have people regulating that who've never produced food. We need to have people who know how to produce food and how to use good systems and innovations, who care about that food instead of those who only care about the bottom line and how much can be returned on those commodities. And that's the distinction that would greatly help.
So really bringing people who trade food closer to people who produce food. But you're also talking about very large commodity markets. So back to our multilateralist, how do you address that? Where do you see the opportunities to make those systemic changes happen at the multilateral level?
So I think Marc is right. The value chain or the agri-food system, it's too long. So we have too many intermediaries. There is a huge component on the trade, but there is a huge component on the production per se. So if you look at the global map, there is a huge mismatch between what we produce and what the ecosystem is ready to produce. So over the crisis we have in the Second World War, we had a huge famine, we had lots of problems, and that's where Green Revolution came. The Green Revolution was based on finding a gene that makes our wheat, nanism gene, we call it. So it's a wheat to make it 70 centimeters instead of 1.5 meters. And that really triggered a little bit of a focus on staple crops. We focused on staple crops in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s because we needed to. But now we realize it wasn't good. It wasn't good for people, it wasn't good for the planet, and it wasn't good in terms of nutrition. So we have to back up and bring back more species. So when we talk about the food system, we need to make the value chain much more shorter, and I fully agree with Marc that the commodity trading, it's a killer. But also what we need to do is look what the ecosystem should produce. And if we do that, In the plant, for example, Patrick, we will go back to easily 30,000 species instead of 125 species we have in the market right now. We go to the animals, we go to the fish, we go to the fungi, you get to the different microorganisms, and then you will have multiple agri-food systems that are going to be working together. But we wouldn't get to the economy of scale. So that economy of scale is one of the issues we have that is translated in the agri-food system. The other thing that we have to do, it's definitely mimicking nature. Nature does not allow one thing to grow. Nature, if you look at it, it's a synergies between different species. And most of the time, a species feeds on a species, and the species help a species to grow. So this large production system that we have that is really made to create one seed or one different species doesn't work. So we have to go and use technology that we have today to be able to produce thousands and thousands of species, be able to process those thousands and thousands of species to get all of it. There is no waste. There shouldn't be any waste. Everything could be used as part of our nutrition. And of course, to do all of that, you need innovation ecosystem. You can't do this mega change without having the right policies, without having the right investors, without having the right collaboration and partnership. So definitely we need, again, multilateralism to come with public-private institution. And above all of this, I like very much what Werli said, we need much more scientists. So we can't do all of this with 0.1% of us looking at the solution. But we need really to invest more in the solution and invest more using the technologies we have today, which give us really endless opportunities of innovating and fixing the problem.
And this is the perfect segue back to Christine, about innovation, about opportunity, about innovative systems. But I think I also want to make sure that we touch on not just the food production systems, but also how those integrate into the environment, the climate, without compromising everything that we want to achieve on that front as well. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I definitely think it was interesting, if we talk about the Green Revolution, which you raised, at the time, when the Green Revolution really, was brought forward, it was a time when humans were designing for calories, right? They're trying to stave off global hunger and said, how do we increase yields to deliver more calories to people? So if you think about that in a reframed way, you think, wow, there's actually human agency here. We have designed the food system as it is, and it is indeed causing more problems than it needs to be. But if you think about the agency we have to redesign the system, it's very empowering. And so what we do in my organization is really take the challenge to the people who know it best. And so we work in over 180 countries, and we appeal to entrepreneurially minded millennials and Gen Zs who also happen to be digitally savvy and socially conscious. And they understand their needs and realities of their farming sectors, and we help them develop solutions from the ground up. And we help them do that through a process of global collaboration. We connect them to, partners, be they leading corporations, investors, or even just peer collaborators who can help them to share knowledge and best practices, but also give them the tools that they need and resources that they need to scale. Importantly, we also are training our next generation of entrepreneurs in systems thinking, because we need to go beyond these linear extractive models that all of the speakers have highlighted have gotten us into this mess, into more circular approaches. But what I think is so fascinating is that, day in and day out, I not only help these startups, come to life, but I study them. And I see some emerging trends, which I think we can all learn from. One is that, many of these startups are being developed to be circular by design. So they really are taking out the very concept of waste. It used to be that the circular economy was about upcycling. Now it's really designing an entire system where every single, part of an innovation is used to regenerate an ecosystem, to improve productivity and help communities flourish. Another exciting space is the combination, I call it ancient roots, new shoots, but it's taking, indigenous knowledge and combining it with powerful tools and technologies like AI and like digital to help that to scale and do more. And I just think we're at the precipice of a new frontier of, if we could start to train AI models on some of this ancient, wisdom that's orally, communicated and now being lost, could we start to build models where that can be integrated with Western, science and research papers to see what else could be possible? But we, of course, need to do this in a way that is sharing the benefits back and in support of with the prior informed consent of indigenous peoples. But these are some exciting frontiers. Also, nutrition. So we talked about, food and agriculture is very related to human health. And nutrition actually can start with the soil. So we're seeing startups that are, working on regenerative approaches to soil and biodiversity, and it's actually having a positive impact on the bioavailability of minerals and nutrients in the crops that are grown. And we're studying this right now, but biochar applications, which is, a 2,000-year-old practice developed in the Amazon, is having a resurgence right now. It basically is about using a process called pyrolysis to burn biomass, apply it to the soil as a charcoal product, and it helps to sequester carbon. But it's also improving the taste and nutrition of the crops grown in this regenerative way. So innovation is becoming more holistic and more systemic, and I think that's really exciting if we can continue to do more of that and train our innovators to be thinking through potential unintended consequences. And that is a whole discussion in and of itself, but really helping them get diverse inputs, thinking about the farmer that they're going to be working with when they deploy the technology, and also thinking about the end consumer and that entire waste side of things and the circular system that could be possible.
Thank you. So clearly there are ideas, there are solutions proposed. You've heard about economies of scale, we've heard about AI, shortening the supply chain. We've heard about global partnerships, producing thousands of species. So by now, I believe, I hope, you have developed some ideas of where you think this is all going. So can I ask our show controllers at the back, please, to put up the slide, which is a great moment for us to be interacting. This is a Mentimeter question that we've discussed during a conversation with the panel a few days ago. So if you just take out your phones, I hope you can scan the barcode, which is very inconveniently located just behind me, or just go to menti.com and put in the code that's up there, so that you provide us with a very short and succinct answer to this question, namely, what does a world that works for everyone look like? It's a deceptively simple question. But I think the value in trying to address this in a room of 400, 500 people is to see whether there are any commonalities. If you don't have an immediate answer to this question, give it some thought. The opportunity to respond will stay up. I say it's a deceptively simple question because I understand Marc has developed a view on that question with experience of several years. To review the results from that.
I have. So there's this question is actually very old, 70 plus years old. What does a world that works for everyone look like for you? It's about 70 years old. It was come up with by a polymath, a futurist, architect and designer, R. Buckminster Fully, or Bucky. And he asked this at the World's Fair in 1967 when he played a game called the World Game, asking all these people all around the world at the World's Fair in the geodescent dome that he built, not as wondrous as this beautiful building, but at the time almost as breathtaking. And in that geodescent dome, he played the World Game, having people try to answer this question. I've done a social experiment for the last 7 years, and I've asked 3,500 people this question. And I did it on video. I asked them, what does a world that works for everyone look like for them? Guess what happened? Only 7 people came up with an answer that was kind of similar. All of those 3,500 plus other people started to sweat. They started to stutter. I thought their eyes were going to roll back in their head and they were going to have a grand mal seizure. And some people said, oh, I need to think about that. Can I get back to you? They didn't know. Now, it's okay if you don't know the answer to that question, but it's only okay if you don't know the answer to that question if you're absolutely comfortable with the way the world is going, if you know the future you're going on, and everything's flowing smoothly. Because if you don't know the answer to that question, I promise you, some religious leader, some government leader, someone, your husband, wife, family member, patriarch or matriarch, has jumped into that position for you in your life and is guiding you on the future that they think is right for you. Some other interesting things happened when I asked people this question. On the reason I recorded it on video is I was hoping maybe 100 good answers and we could compile the videos with this super groundbreaking moment of awe with some kind of a wisdom. And instead I found out, oh no, we're in big trouble. When I asked people twice in the same day, both times their answers were different. If I asked them over several months or several years, their answer was always different. They didn't remember what they said the first time. So then I took it a step further about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. I asked ChatGPT, and guess what the answer was? It was immediate, and there was something really unique about how it answered. At the bottom of ChatGPT, it has a regenerate or a refresh button. I hit that 120 times, and every time the answer was the same. And I was like, that can't be. It's got to be a different answer every time. It's got to improve and get better. Every single time, it was the exact same answer. I was giving a talk in Germany, and I said that same thing from stage, and a futurist in the front row, he got a weird look on his face, and then he grabbed his phone. Well, I continued my talk, and at the end of the talk, he came up to me and said, Mark, I'm so damn mad at you. I can't believe it. You're right. I couldn't listen to the rest of your talk. You said that, and I said, that's not how ChatGPT works. It always gives you a new answer. He said, I immediately typed it in, and he says, you're right. I hit that thing 20 times, and it was always the same. How can that be? And I said to him, you know, did we domesticate artificial intelligence, or did it domesticate us? The more important question is, how does ChatGPT know the answer, but we as human beings don't? Why haven't we unified ourselves enough to know the answer to this question, or the answers on what the future is going to be, where we're going to go, and how our food systems will work?
Let me just briefly interrupt you here. So we've got almost 150 responses here. Good thing is that they're not all the same, so we still have, you know, a leg up on ChatGPT. We have a few, I think, predictable responses here, which is about sustainability, is about fair, green, collaborative, equitable. But I think there's some interesting additions, which are, for example, about peaceful, about trusting, about lack of barriers, about kind, ancient, etc. So I think on the whole it's a very positive, clearly a very positive picture, because implicitly that was the question. So back to the question, what is a future that looks, that works for everyone look like? So I think the overarching message that we're receiving from the whole here is that it is inclusive, it is fair, it is just a thing that works for everyone. It's not exclusive. It brings everyone in. Now, the final thing for us to think about, and really reflecting on these kinds of responses, is to achieve all of this is actually not easy, right? It does take a shift in systems. It does take a major shift in innovation on letting go of some of the old ways of doing things, embracing new ways. And I hesitate to use the phrase, but what are the kinds of moonshots that we might want to, or we need to focus on in order for us to achieve that? So, Christine, I'd like you focus to throw this at you. What is a very big thing that you in a sense, call upon this audience to do differently in order to achieve everything that's so beautiful up on the screen behind you?
Well, in going through this exercise, it reminds me of an initiative that I was part of when I was working with the UN Food Systems Summit. And it was something called the Food Systems Vision Prize that was spearheaded by the Rockefeller Foundation. And actually, you know, it really stuck with me what the purpose of this was. It was a call to visionaries and solution builders, you know, to develop through their imaginative thinking, which is the truly unique human capability that we have, these visions, these bold, brave, courageous visions for the future, and to share those, because so much of what we see in media and pop culture and, you know, news is dystopic. And if we think about, you know, point B, where we need to go, what we, you know, have the chance to build, we need to have these visions of what's possible. So my moonshot is actually like to allow ourselves to really be courageous and bold and imaginative, to break silos, to mix and remix ideas, you know, and take us to a world of possibility. I was actually, you know, just in Germany myself. I landed about 10 minutes before our session kicked off. I haven't had my coffee today. But I was telling some of the audience who were a group of, you know, innovators from the food tech space. And I was sharing with them about an event that my organization did recently in Brooklyn. And one of the things that we did was we built a full sensory soil immersion. And so this past summer, in 2022, the summer of 2022, I was like, you know, sucking down all of the information about the James Webb telescope, you know, and the galaxies, these pictures instilled a sense of wonder and awe in every single human on the planet. And it got me thinking, like, how can we get that same wonder and awe for the galaxies that exist between our feet, you know, underneath our feet and our soils? And so, you know, with some creative collaborators, we said, let's get some mycelium bricks, let's build an enclosure, we'll fill it with soil, we'll have a plate of roots and shrooms, which are, you know, foods from the soil. So you could see the soil, smell the soil, taste the soil. How could we hear the soil? So I reached out to one of my friends who's a world famous DJ, and we collaborated on a 6-track album made from real soil sounds. We, you know, recorded with sensors, soil sounds, and then he made some EDM sounds with it. It was playful, it was fun, and it really engaged people, you know, and this is the type of thing, it's like, why are we not doing this in agriculture? This is serious business. We have to get out of the climate crisis, but at its core, food is fun, it is passionate, it's about connection, it's about community. So my moonshot is, let's bring that back. Let's bring imagination and creativity back and do new things and unleash new possibilities.
So playful future for serious business.
Yeah.
Marc, over to you. What is your call to action here today in Dubai to change the systems, to achieve everything that we've seen up on the wall?
Well, some of us are going to be lucky enough, we're going to have a little lunch with some cellular agriculture coming up, some very special dishes that are pure innovation. So we're at the cusp of greatness in our world. We've got super precision fermentation, fungi, mush labs, we've got cellular agriculture. Did you know that cellular agriculture was discussed by a French scientist 113 years ago? Prime Minister Winston Churchill spoke about it in his talk 50 years hence. But today, 113 years later, we're just barely rolling out that innovation and technology. What a lot of our innovators are learning is that even though we've talked about it for 113 years, our infrastructure hasn't been set up and prepared for the rollout of cellular agriculture and for the rules and regulations. And so I really think that we've talked enough, and Dubai is the place to put that action and policy and regulation so that these new cellular agriculture, precision fermentation, and these new foods of the future, which really have the ability to solve a lot of our problems or can be added to the toolbox of our tools to solve the problem, to do that. And the opportunities here and now, no better place to make it happen than here.
Excellent, thank you. And a multilateralist view at the end. Call to action, moonshot.
I think really we are living in a world of scarcity. So we grew up in abundance where we had lots of natural resources. It's not the case. Going forward, the population is going to grow. We need to produce more and better, but we don't have enough resources. So for me, the call is that we need to invest more in solutions. We do need more science. We need to understand the agri-food system better. And we need really to use the best of science, from quantum to AI to genomic to nanotechnology, to find those solutions. And the only way to do it is to have open data, have open collaboration, open partnership, but to invest more. We do need solution, because by the end, I could live without my app or my telephone or technology, but we cannot live without food. So if we want to survive on this planet, if we want to really play the role of the best species on this planet that has the responsibility to protect the other species, it's to find solutions. And those solutions are in science, but not only in technology and innovation. We need to innovate in our institution, we have to innovate in our finance, and we have to innovate also to go back to the root. As Christine said, bring the indigenous technologies, make them together to quantify them and make them as a new innovation. And maybe my last one, I think agri-food system has the solution. Because when we talk about carbon sequestration, the only thing that sequesters carbon is soil, ocean, or crop coverage. So we are the solution. Energy and renewable energy, it's very interesting, definitely, but it wouldn't save us. The only thing that will save us is to develop systems that will allow us to sequester more in our soils, in our ocean, and in our plants. And that's where science comes, and that's where I would like to mention that the CGIAR system is doing a call for more funding in research to make sure that our livestock reduce its methane, for example, emission, to make sure that our rice, again, we produce more, but with less emission. So it's balancing between the production and the sequestration, and increasing the agricultural sequestration capacity to get to zero carbon or maybe negative carbon balance.
Excellent. Lots of ideas. We've not solved all of the world's problems just now, but I hope we've encouraged you to be part of the solutions. I hope you've learned something. I know I've learned a lot this morning with the panel. Please join me in thanking Ismahane, Christine, and Marc.
Yeah. We should get a panel picture. Can we get a panel picture?
We can do.
السيدات والسادة، استراحة لمدة 15